Good afternoon and welcome. On behalf of Patterson Consultants Group, we'd like to really thank you for being here today in our analysis of Rotary Cove Beach in connection with the YMCA. I'd like to introduce my associates. My name is Noah Archibald.
I'm Joe Wojciak.
I'm Nicole Morrison.
And I'm Morgan Fairclough.
I'd now like to hand it over to Nicole, who will be going over the problem statement for us today.
So when we began evaluating your situation, we started with a problem statement to kind of see where you guys are sitting right now. So right now, Anne-Marie Thompson is the current branch manager of the YMCA Gordon Huron Outlet. She is currently faced with a dilemma referring to what to do with the beach cove right now, which has been consuming a lot of her time with very little development. The YMCA hopes to implement some changes before the upcoming season, and Anne-Marie has determined some possible options that we are going to evaluate to see the foreseeable benefits and how it will carry out in the future.
So now looking at the situation analysis, looking at SWOT, which stands for Strength, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. So some strengths are, they have nationally certified lifeguards, they have a small yearly staff turnover, they have a strong word-of-mouth marketing at the beach, memberships are not affected by economic conditions such as recessions, and they have regular water testing.
Some of the weaknesses that the beach is currently facing is they have a limited source of income. Actually, there's no income coming from the beach towards the YMCA to cover that net loss at the end of the year. This is causing a large deficit that in turn the town council will have to cover. They are also giving the YMCA a 20 grand grant to go towards the beach. So on top of that, they're covering the net loss. And they also have poor attendance records. From when we first look at the records all the way till now, they have been declining.
The YMCA has opportunities to hold sports camps. Sport camps promotes the surrounding areas, and it is statistically proven to reduce youth crime in Ontario. You guys are also being considered for blue flag recognition. To be considered for blue flag recognition, you have to meet water quality standards and beach safety standards. Also, you need to meet the environmental information and education. Being blue flag is recognized in 45 different countries.
Some possible threats that are posed to the beach today are that there are deteriorated water conditions across all of Ontario, and also there are many nearby alternative beaches that provide alternatives to the Rotary Cove Beach in the area.
So now looking at your organizational analysis. So currently, the Godric Huron branch is a sub-branch to the Sarnia Lambton, which covers a wider area of southeastern Ontario. The City Council is also directly involved as they are a majority stakeholder having to pay out the net loss at the end of each year. Before any decision can be made, the Godric Huron branch, Anne-Marie Thompson, must go through the Sarnia Lambton branch and through City Council. The YMCA is also a very mission-driven organization believing in their 5 core values. These core values are caring, they care about the community that they're in, honesty, they are open and tell the truth about everything, respect, they respect everyone no matter what, responsibility, they are leaders in their community and are responsible to as such, and inclusiveness. They believe in providing an inclusive area for everybody. Now looking at the market analysis. According to a study on the economic effects on beaches and Lake Huron, Rachel Dodd said that 65% of attendees in the survey were between the ages of 20 to 54. 67% of attendees had an income greater than $60,000 Canadian. 80% of these attendees, though, are not locals, so they're visitors coming away from afar. So when we look at TravelWise, which is a company that checks the rate of living among Canada, disposable income for families in Ontario appears after $60,000. So as stated earlier, most of our attendees have an income greater than that, so there's lots of disposable income for them to spend in the surrounding area. Employee analysis, looking at the employees of the beach. They consist primarily of university students. They need a national certification, which is NLS. They also have a large generation turnover about every 3 to 4 years. So because they're all university students mainly, they're looking for more permanent jobs at about 3rd or 4th year university. This in turn creates a large training expense in that time frame. So your financial analysis. So you've done a great job of reducing expenses of the beach over the past few years, dropping it to below by $2,000. However, the beach still contributes about 0.7% to the total expenditures of the Y, and if the grant gets cut, this will lead to about a 1% of the expenditures total. Your wages are the largest expense that you currently have, and this is only going to be going up as minimum wage is supposed to increase. You also have a large increase in your plant and facilities from year to year, which we're unsure if this is to improvements or to inflation.
With decision criteria, we've came up with 5 things to keep in mind that are critical when choosing the best next option that will move your company forward. The 5 things being the cost of implementation, the adherence to the mission statement, the time to implement, the effect on stakeholders.
Starting with the cost of implementation, we will be looking at how the reason of importance is that there are currently insufficient funds for covering current expenses at the beach. We will be measuring this in Canadian dollars, and for the option to be recommended, it cannot exceed $8,000. The mission statement is very important for the YMCA, and that's why we're using this as one of the decision criteria. It will be rated on a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. It must meet a requirement of 2.5 for it to be recommended.
We would like to see changes in this upcoming season for your company. So this is going to put us on a tight timeline from March to June of 4 months. Also, the past few seasons, you have had a deficit. So we need to keep in mind the ability to cover net loss. This will be measured in Canadian dollars, and it must meet a minimum of $5,000.
Finally, one of the more prioritized decision criteria is the effects that any changes we do will have on the stakeholders. So types of stakeholders that you can keep in mind are the townspeople, the town council, Anne-Marie herself, and the employees of the YMCA. This is important because any changes that happen will affect these people. So it's going to be rated on a scale from -5 to +5, -5 and all the negative numbers being a negative effect, 0 a neutral or no change or effect, and +5 and +1 to +5 a positive effect. So the overall effect, or the average of all these stakeholders, must be 0 or above.
So options. We have 5 options that we believe that have been stated for us. So there's status quo, which is continuing at the same way you've been going. However, we've taken a precaution and removed the grant from our analysis as town council is going through a re-election and we're unsure about the status of it. Secondly, hire a student to run operations for the summer. This would involve hiring a 3rd or 4th year university student to run the operations of the beach. When doing so, they will take on the full responsibility of the beach and the expenses. So any money that's left over from the grant at the end of summer is theirs to keep. Third, outsource operations to a private company. Here we would look for a company to take over operations at the beach, thus giving up hours. Fourth is charge an admission fee. So after calculations, we thought it would be fair to charge about $2 per person to enter the beach. There's also will include setting up a booth on the road, which will then will have a employee sitting at to collect admissions. And lastly, install volleyball courts. So here we would excavate and create volleyball courts on the beach, and then hold summer camps, sports camps during the summer for them.
We will now apply our decision criteria to the options and also look at pros and cons that come along with these options as well.
So for status quos, the pros are it decreases the financial unpredictability, there's little to no change in customer morale, and there's no resources required for adjustments or change. Now for the pros, it continues to consume time, decline in staff morale as there is no improvement, could hurt the brand of the Rotary Cove Beach in the long run, and a possibility of losing the grant.
The decision criteria are listed here. If you'd like a more detailed description, look in.
So the effects that the status quo will have on the stakeholders are as shown. One of the most negative effects is what it will do to the city council, as there's a new city council election coming up, And it will incur a -4 because of the limited change, and we will probably drop the 20 grand grant by doing just no change. There's also a limited or a very negative effect on Anne-Marie Thompson herself, as she still has the responsibility of the beach completely. Overall, this scores a -3.
So hiring a student to run operations for the summer. Some pros: there's more time for you to invest at the YMCA branch. You can improve the reputation of both the YMCA and Rotary Cove, and you're supporting a local student. Some cons: there's a low ease of implementation. There's a potential for the student to lack the competency needed to effectively run the site even after a selective hiring process. And Anne-Marie loses significant control over beach operations during the summer.
Now looking at how it affects the stakeholders, as you can see here, townspeople and the city council remain both at 0 as being neutral. The employees are scaled at 1, and this is because having a student running operations would provide new inspiration for them as workers, and it would provide a scale of 4 for Anne-Marie Thompson, as now she is less responsible for what goes on at the beach. This calculates to an average of 1.25.
For our third option was to outsource operations to a private company. The pros in this is it increases time investment at the YMCA branch. The YMCA is supporting a local business, and the lifeguards would not be affected by a pay rise. The cons is you lose control over operations. The YMCA loses their advertisement on the beach, and its potential to cause damage to the YMCA brand.
So the outsourcing operations effects on stakeholders, it's a -2 on the townspeople because it's kind of not really known what that company will do with the beach. But however, it brings a +4 for Anne-Marie Thompson because all of that responsibility for the beach is off her plate, and she can focus more on her YMCA obligations, as well as a +3 for City Council because now they will incur some sort of profit from another company running their operations on the beach. This is an overall score of 1.25.
So charging admission fee. Some pros are you create a new consistent flow of income to the beach and thus to the YMCA. You increase equipment by using these funds to purchase new, and increase possibilities for further investment into the beach. However, cons are you could lose loyal members to the beach, having gone there their whole life. You could cause damage to the brand of the beach. People will be less likely to support the beach in terms of donations, and difficulty in preventing people who would avoid paying by sneaking in or going around into other entrances.
The effects on stakeholders here are that townspeople would be at a -3, and this is because by charging admissions, it affects them negatively, and it could also potentially take potential sales away from them. The city council is scaled at a 2.5 because they would no longer have to pay for so much loss. The employees would be at 2, and that's because they now have an increase in hours, and Anne-Marie Thompson would be at a decrease of 2, and the reasoning there is because she now has increased responsibilities from before. This is an overall score of -0.125.
So our last option is to install volleyball courts. The pros is there's more entertainment for other beachgoers, and you have potential to attract a new audience. An increase of investment in the Rotary Cove Beach as well. The pros is it increases risk of damage to equipment, the cons, and property. There's potential for more accidents and injuries, and it would decrease space on the beach itself.
So the effects that volleyball courts would have on stakeholders is the townspeople, it's a +4, and this is because there's a new attraction at the beach that will engage people to come to the beach, which is the volleyball courts. City Council is a +2 because now you're incurring more of a profit, and you can offset the net loss that you have had in other years. Employees, it's a +3 because now the employees are more engaged in their job, possibly because of the volleyball courts. And Anne-Marie Thompson, it starts off as a -1 because she has more of a responsibility over that, but soon she can hand over complete beach operations to a senior lifeguard and perhaps take on the beach and her other YMCA obligations as total. So overall, this scores a +2, which is the highest ranking for the effects on stakeholders. Speaking of the evaluation, the time to implement for status quo is 0 months, and it has a 0 implementation cost. However, it has very negative effects on stakeholders, and due to losing the 20 grand grant, you don't have that ability to cover net loss as much. So status quo is not really where we're looking to go. Hiring a student has a positive effect on stakeholders, but you also have a zero ability to cover net loss because that 20 grand grant will go to the student. If we jump over to volleyball courts, you can see that it has the second highest cost of implementation. However, it does have the highest ability to cover net loss, and it has the best effect on stakeholders, whereas charging admission has a negative effect even though it has a higher ability to cover net loss. So moving on, we have decided as a group a recommendation going forward, and it will be the volleyball course to implement into the beach. So as I said before, it has positive effects throughout, and overall it has the best impact on the beach and the YMCA's reputation.
Now taking a look at the implementation plan for implementing the new volleyball courts. As you can see here on the grant chart, it can give you a broad idea of how to do this. So on March 1st, you could contact the insurance supplier to get your liability insurance, and as soon as that is approved, you can move on to other steps, which include contacting a company with a cement truck and also excavators so they can install the volleyball courts. Construction should begin on April 12th and go for 2 days. And should things go as planned, registration should open on the 1st of May with a public opening for the volleyball courts on June 28th. We'd like to thank you for being here today and the opportunity to analyze this case. We'd now like to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have.
That's good. How long was that? Did it keep recording?
No password. It definitely kept recording with the green lights on.
My shoulders are sore.
That was really good though.